Hi Stampers, this is Brenda Keenan with Keenan Kreations, and today we're going to make a quick and easy Christmas card for the holidays. We're going to use a Winter Woods stamp set, and the greeting is coming from Timeless Tidings. We're going to start with Mossy Meadow cardstock, and this is cut 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. We're going to emboss it with the 10 tile dynamic embossing folder. Now this embossing folder is one of the thicker ones, so you do not use a bottom plate on your Big Shot. So you're going to use this platform. We're going to center the cardstock inside this embossing folder, and it's actually really easy to do because Stampin' Up! Has made this design perfectly centered, and they've also given you a horizon line here to make sure that your cardstock is not crooked. So just line this up. I do want the image to be perfectly centered, so I'm going to take a little bit of time and get it right about there. So I'm looking at the tops of these little petals to make sure they're the same on the top and the bottom. I'm looking on the side here to make sure they're even. So once I have it placed, and I do put the cardstock up against the top layer so I can more easily line it up, and then I'm going to close it to hold that in place. This folded edge, I'm going to have it go in first or last. I don't like to have it on one of the sides because if it's poking out a little bit, that folded edge can get chewed up and break apart. You have one cutting pad on top, and again, be careful to make sure all your edges are in and run that through the Big Shot. I like to go all the way in and then back it back out. I've seen some videos where demonstrators or stampers are misting the cardstock with water before running it through the Big Shot. I've tried it that way, and I've tried it without misting, and to me I can't see the difference. So it might depend on your Big Shot, but mine gives a nicely embossed image. Next we are using shimmery white cardstock, and this is 3 1/2 by 3 1/2. It is shimmery on both sides, so it doesn't matter which side that you use, and it's actually a little bit thicker, so if you mess up on this side you can turn it over and stamp on the back and it doesn't show through. We're using this row of trees here. Now you can see that I've trimmed my stamp pretty closely around the edges. When I ink it up, I want to be careful not to get excess ink in between because sometimes that can transfer to your cardstock. We're using Mossy Meadow ink. This is the new style ink pad, so you just go to the bottom part of the pad here and flip that open. You can slide it in. I don't slide it in all the way, so that way it's easy for me to grab and close. When they're new, they're a little bit stiff, so to me it's easier just to not put it in all the way. Again, I'm going to lightly ink these trunks along the bottom just by tapping. I'm going to pay more attention to inking up these trees at the top because there's a lot of detail in this image. So I'm using the corner of the ink pad, and you can see where the ink is applying. So I'm just going to keep repeating until I get a nice even coverage. I want to stamp this fairly close to the top of the cardstock to leave room for the greeting at the bottom. And you want to press very firmly here. You don't want to mash it here because sometimes those skinny images can wobble a little bit and blur. So most of my pressing is right along here. I like to use my thumb. It's a little easier for me to have even pressure. Next we're using Cherry Cobbler. This is the older style ink pad, so it does flip open differently. We also have a strip of the Festive Farmhouse Designer Series paper. This is cut 2 inches by 5 1/2. We're going to use the triple banner punch, and this has little spaces here for your cardstock to line up. The largest is 2 inches, and you can actually go in between these sizes. You just have to manually center it. So this is just going to go all the way in, and then just press that down, and you have a notch. Our card base is also Mossy Meadow, and this is the standard 8.5 by 5.5 and scored down the middle at 4 1/4. We're going to add the embossed layer to the front of the card. My snail adhesive just ran out, so it's very easy to replace. You just remove this part here and snap it in place. So I do go around all the edges. I'm also going to add glue dots to each of the corners. Sometimes when you have an embossed layer, it wants to lift up over time. So I just want to make sure that it is stuck pretty well to the front of the card. Now I cut this layer just a smidge smaller than the front of my card, so you're really not going to see much of a border. Because it's the same color, it's also a little more forgiving if you're not perfectly straight. I'm going to just lightly curl these edges here, add adhesive, and I'm going to use my grid paper to help center this. So if I go to the top of the grid paper, I can see where I need to be. So right about here. And this dark line is my center. I just go right to the top. We're going to add dimensionals to the top layer. I'm looking to see if the top and the sides are even. So I want to have the same or similar spacing at the top and the sides here. Now I went ahead and stamped the inside of the card and the envelope to match. And on the envelope, I also embossed the flap on the back. So I hope you enjoyed today's project. For more ideas, you can visit me at KeenanCreations.com. Thanks and have a great day.